Now the PowerProbe 3 and the PowerProbe 3EZ also have some different testing modes. If you push the right button or the menu button on the PowerProbe 3EZ, you'll see those modes going down the list. Top is voltmeter, that's the mode we've been using. Next one down is peak to peak mode. Next one is max peak mode. Next one is min peak mode. Then AC threshold. Then there is a flip screen function, which you can have the display upside down or right side up. And then there's two sections, one called Easy Learning and Easy Diagnostics, that are more like guided functions in the tool, not necessarily testing functions. Now all except the bottom three, the voltmeter, the peak to peak, the max peak, the min peak, and the AC threshold are also in the PowerProbe 3. But there's no menu to select from. The way you get to them is you hold down the speaker button. And I'll hold this one down. You'll see the first screen comes up, it says 0, 0, and there's a negative in the lower left-hand corner. That is the equivalent of the min peak mode in the PowerProbe 3EZ. I'll hold it down again. You'll see the positive in the corner now. That is your max peak mode. One more time. P, there's your peak to peak mode. And this one with the alternating plus minus, and right now it says 50.0, that is your AC threshold setting. So that's the AC, which is the AC threshold in the PP3EZ. I'll go back to the beginning and we'll explain these functions. First one, we'll start with this one here, the min peak mode. Let me go ahead and select it on the PowerProbe 3EZ. And again, you should normally have 0 on the display because it's going to show in min peak mode the minimum voltage that is on the tip from when you begin measuring. So obviously there's nothing on the tip now, so it says 0. So you would connect it to a voltage supply, hit the mute button on this one, and I've reset the display. So now the minimum voltage it's seeing live right now is 11.1 volts. Now if the voltage were to drop, I turn it down to 7.8. Even if the voltage comes 7.7, even if it comes back up, it's still going to retain that whatever that voltage dropped to. So this is good for catching intermittent glitches, dropouts, voltage drops, that kind of thing. And until you reset the display again, now it goes back to whatever the voltage was. If the voltage drops, drop to 3 volts, but it's going to capture that glitch. That's what you would use the min peak for. I'll demonstrate it. It'll probably be a little clearer even on this tool. We'll connect it. We'll reset it. Okay. Now, there's my monitoring voltage. If there's any dropout, whoop. And if I recall, it's pretty fast. Let's try this. Reset. Yep. So it's very fast. Even just a quick little switch, it captured that glitch. Next one up, we'll hold the button down again. Positive in the corner. In this tool will be, we're looking for max peak mode. Max peak or positive in the corner. That's the same equivalent in the PowerProbe 3 or the PowerProbe 3EZ. Now this is similar, except just the opposite. It's gonna display the highest voltage it sees. So right now I'm showing 7.3 volts. If the voltage goes up, went up to 11, even if it goes back down again, it's gonna display the highest voltage it sees, the highest variation it sees. If it goes up again, I'm down, now I'm up to 11.2. Even if it goes down again, still going to hold that reading. Even if I disconnect from the circuit, it's going to hold the highest reading. That can be handy sometimes if you're probing in areas where you can't see the display. Then you could use this mode, get a reading, pull it back down, and be able to read it. But just the opposite of the min peak mode, where it's going to capture drops in voltage, the max peak mode is going to capture the highest voltage, even if there is a drop, or if there's a spike, it'll catch that. Let's show that in PowerProbe 3EZ. We'll go back here. And right now it's 6.3, but if my voltage goes up, 10.4, even if it goes back down again, still gonna hold that 10.4 reading. If there's a spike higher than that, it'll go up, but even if it drops, still gonna hold the highest reading. Even if I disconnected, so my voltage is actually down to 0, it's holding the highest reading. You can reset, whoops, excuse me. You can reset at any time. And it'll just show you the max voltage it sees from that point. So just the opposite of min peak. Next one up, peak to peak mode. Now a true AC meter, like a voltmeter, measures both positive and negative current flow. This is not a true AC meter. It'll only measure positive voltage. It never measures any negative voltage. But typically on vehicles, things we're dealing with are 5-volt pulses, 12-volt pulses. They're not true AC with any negative component anyway. So this can be useful. This mode can be useful. It's not a true AC meter, but let's turn our AC signal generator on. This one is a 5-volt pulse, but this was telling me 4.9 volts. And it's not going to average it like a multimeter would. A multimeter would probably round that, since this is a half on pulse, it would probably say 2.5 volts. Again, it can measure different voltages. It can measure different frequencies. It's not a true AC meter. It is a 0 to peak voltage meter, but that's actually more useful to us. If I have a 12-volt pulse or a 5-volt pulse, I want to read 5-volt, 4.9 on this one, or 12-volt, or whatever it happens to be. And we'll show you peak-to-peak mode again with PowerProbe 3EZ. This will be a 9-volt AC signal. It's showing peak-to-peak 7.5 volts. And this is a 5-volt square wave, and it's showing 5.0 volts. So again, not a true AC meter like a multimeter, but actually in the automotive realm, a little more useful. Now the last setting we had on here, let me scroll down, was AC threshold. And when you select that, you'll see a number. Let's go to that in this one. Hold down the button one more time. Number is usually set at 50. The default is 50. If you disconnect the tool at any time, regardless of what this setting was set at, it'll reset back to 50 in the PowerProbe 3EZ. It will not. It will store the last setting you kept it in the PowerProbe 3, and I'll show you why that's important in a minute. In this mode, what you are selecting, that AC voltage that we just measured, is a cutoff. Normally it's set really high, 50 volts AC. Hopefully I never see 50 volts AC anywhere on a car. But if any AC signal exceeds whatever number you set here, then it will do two things. It'll automatically kick to that peak-to-peak mode that we just did our testing with, and it'll activate the speaker so you're hearing the signal. So there's a bunch of different settings you can set it at. Default, I said, is 50.0. The lowest is 0.2, 0.5, 1.0, 2.0, 5.0, 10.0, and 50.0. Typically, I'm at one or the other. If I don't want this function, I'm going to set it really high at the 50 setting. If I do want it, I'm going to set it all the way down at the 0.2 setting. But if I'm looking for a specific cutoff, maybe I'll set it at one of the settings between. So I'm going to set it at 0.2. And once it says 0.2 here, I'm going to hold down my button and go back to my normal mode. Again, we'll do it with the PP3EZ, where the set button. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to go back to AC threshold. 0.2, we'll set it at that. It's back to its normal mode. Now, whenever it sees any AC signal that exceeds that 0.2 voltage, it's going to do two things. You'll see the display, it automatically kicked over to that P mode. It's displaying the peak-to-peak voltage, and it's activated the speaker so you can actually hear the signal. And we'll do it with PP3EZ. So it'll display, it'll automatically switch from your DC voltmeter mode to peak mode and let you hear the signal through the speaker. This can be a fantastic quick test on things like wheel sensors, crank sensors, cam sensors, things that are spinning all the time. Just connecting to it and hearing that there's a signal can give you an idea if the signal's working or not right away.